Dear John, how are you doing today? It is a pleasure seeing you.
Nice seeing you too, and I'm doing great. Thank you.
Thank you so much for finding some time to participate in the interview. We are excited to seeing you in the upcoming Congress on Chile 2024, devoted to the workers' occupational health and safety. As a quick introduction, for those who doesn't know, John Rasser is a former CEO of the Workers' Compensation Research Institute in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and the former Associate Commissioner in Productivity and Technology at Bureau of Labor Statistics in Washington, D.C. He is now the president of his own company, Insights into Comparison. So before we dive into the interview, I would like to ask, what have sparkled your initial interest in the field of occupational health and safety, assuming your extensive background in economics and public administration?
So, ironically, I started in the area over 40 years ago. I wrote a doctoral dissertation on how workers' compensation insurance can create incentives for safety. And I just kept on going through the rest of my career, focusing on occupational safety and health.
Thank you for opening up. I'm grateful for your detailed answer. Now, moving on, are you a supporter or an opponent of the digitalization in occupational health and safety?
Digitalization is crucial to the improvement of workplace safety and health. I think when the attendees in the conference go to the many really interesting sessions on AI and the use of data, they'll see how important digitalization is to move forward in reducing workplace injuries and illnesses.
That is very interesting. How do you see the impact of emerging technologies like artificial intelligence on workplace safety and compensation systems?
So one of the important developments in workplace safety and health over the past couple of decades is improvements in the collection of information about workplace safety and health, information about where accidents and injuries are occurring, and now, most importantly, with AI, creating the possibility to predict where injuries and illnesses might occur, so there can be a proactive response to reducing injuries and illnesses.
Your response gives a lot to think about. Thank you so much. Building on what you just mentioned, I'm curious, what are the top 3 modern digital solutions for workplace health and safety in your opinion?
Well, actually, the first one is exactly what we've been talking about. The improvements in the collection of worker safety and health information and data, and better information systems to process that information. Now, with the increase in the use of AI, we have predictive digitalization, predictive models, ways of seeing where injuries and illnesses are going to happen before they do, so they can be addressed. So one key modern feature is just the use of data and prediction. Another is better surveillance and monitoring of workplace conditions. So when I say surveillance, I'm thinking, for example, of cameras that can look at the workplace and can, along with the use of information systems and along with the use of AI, these cameras can help identify places where there might be higher job risks, so they can be addressed in advance. Another very exciting part of surveillance and monitoring is the use of wearables on workers. So employers can determine whether or not workers are straining themselves too much, and think about ways to improve the way that workers work by directly monitoring those workers. Now, I realize that there are concerns about privacy with wearables, but I think on net, it's a positive to be able to monitor what workers do. Finally, another really important development that's related to digitalization is the use of robotics. It used to be that many job tasks were performed by human beings, and they were risky, they were hard, but now robots can do those jobs and do them as well. And instead of a worker getting broken, maybe the machine gets broken instead, which of course is a much better development. So
Thank you for shedding light on this question. So, given your strong advocacy for the data integrity and the importance of transitioning from reactive to proactive approach to safety management via the quality information, how do you approach the trade-off between collecting enough data to make informed decisions and the risk of overstepping privacy boundaries of the employees?
Well, I think it is exactly a balance that has to be struck. Um, in countries where unions are stronger, the unions can provide a voice for the workers to ensure that those boundaries about privacy are not overstepped, as you say, and I think it's a very good term. But also, there are many workplaces, especially in the United States, where most workers are not in unions, in which case it's going to have to be a conversation between the employers and the workers for everybody to feel comfortable about the collection of the information about worker activities. Again, it's going to just have to be a balance that has to be struck, but it's very clear that important information can be gathered from workers in ways that are not meant to intrude on their privacy.
I appreciate your explanation. Following up on the employee safety, how do you explain the trend where injury rates decrease, however, the severity of the accidents increase? And how will this paradox be addressed in your presentation in the upcoming Congress in Santiago, Chile?
So it is one of the sort of exciting developments in worker safety and health is the big drop in injuries and illnesses, particularly non-fatal injuries and illnesses, but even fatality rates. Those drops are happening everywhere. They're happening in not only the United States, but in other developed countries in Europe, for example. They're happening in all industries. So it's not like just some industries, it's happening in all industries. But it is true that it's happening more in what used to be the traditional high-risk industries like construction, manufacturing. But the drops are everywhere. We also see the drops in all sorts of different kinds of events that result in injury, like overexertion, falls, everything. We see the drops also for all different kinds of injuries, like fractures, like sprains, like cuts and burns. So that's the good news. As you observed, however, what we do see is that there's been an increase in the severity of injuries. And it seems like that should be a paradox. I would suggest it's not a paradox. It's a reflection of a couple of different things. First off, older workers tend to get injured more severely. When they get injured for any particular kind of injury, they stay off work longer. They also sustain different kinds of injuries than young workers do. Older workers are more likely to have fractures and falls. So older workers are injured more severely, even for the same kind of injury. Well, why does that matter? Because our workforce has been aging. And so it's not surprising that as the workforce ages, we're seeing on average more severe, what seem to be more severe injuries, because it's an average between the old workers and the young workers. So that's one of the explanations. The other explanation is to recognize that the kinds of events that result in more severe injuries are not the same as the ones that result in less severe injuries. And you can have a drop in all injuries, but not as much for the ones that cause more severe injuries. Let me be specific. For example, one of the major causes of fatalities is falls. And we see that there's been a drop in the rate of fatalities resulting in falls, but it's not nearly as fast a drop as for, say, sprains and strains. So you have a different mix of injuries and illnesses occurring, which results in seeing on average more severe injuries and illnesses. I hope that was somewhat clear.
Thank you so much for offering such a thoughtful response. And now, before we wrap up, let's switch gears and talk about key modern challenges in the occupational health and safety, and which matters do you expect to be raised at the upcoming Congress in Chile 2024?
So one of the modern challenges I would just call in a very broad way, new ways to work. It means it shows up in very different kinds of ways. One is different places where we work. I'm working right now in an apartment in San Juan, Puerto Rico, but also working at different times. You know, maybe I'm going to get up in the middle of the night and do work. So workers are just working in different places and at different times where it's harder for the employer to control the workplace. Another different way to work, as I mentioned before, robotics. One of the risks of robotics is what I would call human-machine interactions, where generally the robotics are very safe, but sometimes a worker might end up interacting with the robot in a way that's very negative, in a way that a worker could get harmed. So that's something that, of course, has to be observed and controlled to the extent possible. So that's one thing, new ways to work. Another is exposures to new substances, such as chemicals, new chemicals, and even nanomaterials. And I know that in the conference, we're going to hear from speakers who will be talking about these new substances and how their exposures can be very dangerous to workers. Finally, another developing interest in the safety and health community is on mental health. Mental health can mean where a worker has some previous mental health issues that impact them in some way once they get injured, but it also could be cases where a worker gets injured and gets depressed because of their injury, and that mental health issue can impact their recovery. And so I think there's a growing recognition about the importance of addressing not only the physical parts of the injury, but also the mental parts of the injury.
Your answer is very informative. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Thank you. As we're coming to the end of our interview, I would like to ask if there is anything else you would like to add or highlight.
I just want to say that I'm actually very excited to attend the conference. I have had the opportunity to look very closely at the agenda and see the amazing variety of topics that are being presented by an amazing variety of presenters. The ORP conference is one that I always enjoy attending. I've been very fortunate to be able to go every year and present, and I'm just absolutely looking forward to doing it again.
Oh, that is so nice. Thank you for sharing your insights. It's been a pleasure speaking with you, and I think we have touched upon some really important matters related to occupational health and safety in this interview. I would also like to say a huge thank you for the communication team and the recording team who was helping us today to make this interview. Once again, I want to say thank you so much for your time and looking forward to seeing you in the Congress in Chile 2024.
I am too. Thank you very much.
Have a nice day.
You too.